Hi, so I wanted to make this video about the second mobile app that I've created for iOS and Android. This one's called ChordFind, and in similar fashion to my first app, Bassneck, this is also a music app, but it's not restricted to any specific instrument, as long as you play a pitched instrument like a guitar or piano, and not a non-pitched like drums, and you should be able to find some use for this app. So basically, if we open it up right here, and it takes you through this tutorial, which kind of explains the main functions of the app, the main features, and you can skip it by pressing this button right there. And kind of like the inspiration that led to this app was, as a songwriter, primarily a guitar player, I've never really had an issue with coming up with melodies, in the form of melodic lines or riffs, but I've always struggled with coming up with chord progressions to accompany those melodies. So I just thought it'd be cool if you had a tool to help accomplish that task. So basically in this main vertical view right here, you've got this input field for inputting notes of the melody in question, and it defaults to finding common chords. If you see that green button is selected. So say we've got a 3-note melody with D, F sharp, and A. So we input those notes like the description says above, uppercase, separated by commas. And in this view, it's kind of like for simple melodies where only a single chord would be needed to accompany them. So after you've got those notes inputted, you click Find Chords. And then it gives you a list of chord options, a scrollable list that you can scroll through. And it's kind of ordered in what chords would most likely sound the best if the first note in the melody was considered the root. So if you select one of these options, it plays a pretty standard piano keyboard audio of what that chord would sound like so. And some of these options, if you select them, it'll open this extensions window, which basically gives versions of the chord with notes stacked on top, like D add 9, D add 13, D add 11, etc. So this arpeggiate toggle right here is basically for playing the individual notes of the chord consecutively, so that it kind of illustrates what the individual chords of the notes are, and it kind of makes it easier to hear how to play it. So if we go over to this jazz chords option, it basically gives you similar chord options, but it defaults to more dense chords with more individual notes like 6s and 7s. There's that arpeggiated D6 chord right there. And then there's that D major 7 all at once. So yeah, also within these jazz chords, there's extensions like with the common chords. But in addition to denser chords, it also gives non-diatonic chords like this D major 7 augmented. Non-diatonic meaning chords that don't really exist in the context of the major scale found in Western music. And that concept of non-diatonic versus diatonic exists in this app, where it gives scale options for scales that contain the notes of this melody, and it splits those options between diatonic and non-diatonic, where you have this D Lydian mode option, where the Lydian mode exists within the context of the major scale found in Western music. But if you go over to these non-diatonic ones, these are scales more commonly found in Eastern cultures, like D double harmonic, or D Phrygian dominant, which is actually a mode of the harmonic minor scale. So in addition to scale options, it also gives you options for keys that contain the notes of your melody. So that kind of helps give you context for fleshing out your melodies and chord progressions. In this case, D is one of the options for the key, so if you select that, then it plays a D major scale, which is the same as the key of D. And if you go to minor keys, each major key has a relative minor, so it gives you these options. So that basically sums up the vertical view, which is better for simple, kind of short melodies that only require one chord over the top. But if you turn your device horizontally, then it brings you into this view, which is better for multi-chord options and chord progressions, because it gives you multiple input fields. So for instance, with these toggles at the bottom, it defaults to chord progression mode, which basically means that it'll try to find results as if all the notes across your input fields are in the same key, like so. And if you change it to key change mode, then it'll kind of consider all your inputs independently as if you're doing a key change for every chord of your chord progression. So it gives you the same options as the vertical page, like jazz chords, keys, diatonic major modes, and non-diatonic, etc. But if you scroll all the way to the end, there's this add new chord button where it defaults to a 2-chord progression, but you can add as many different chords as you want. Like say, for instance, you got a 3-chord progression like so, and it gives you these options, or you want to figure out the scales that could work over all the chords of the progression, you could do something like that. And yeah, that basically sums up ChordFind. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope it was informative. And yeah, feel free to let me know in the comments if you think there's anything that could be improved in this app. And I'll see you guys next time.